It was late, and the house had settled into that calm hush only nighttime brings. I was tucked under the covers, lazily scrolling through my phone, when I heard a light knock at the door. "Come in," I said, not looking up. I already knew it was Aiden. He was the only one who knocked like that, soft and hesitant, like he was always weighing whether to speak or stay silent. He stepped into the room and paused at the threshold, eyes darting toward the floor. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Hey, can I ask you something?" I set my phone on the nightstand and sat up. "Sure. What's going on?" He shut the door behind him before slowly crossing the room. "It's about Haley," he admitted, referring to his girlfriend. "Okay," I said, intrigued. He lowered himself onto the edge of my bed, tugging at the sleeve of his hoodie. "She wants me to stay over this weekend. Her parents are going out of town." "All right," I said cautiously. "And you're nervous because—" He flushed, his voice quieter now. It'd be the first time. I studied him for a moment, shoulders tight, hands fidgeting, eyes avoiding mine. "You're anxious," I said gently. He groaned and dropped back onto the bed, staring up at the ceiling. "Of course I am. What if I mess everything up? What if I freeze or do it wrong, or she's expecting something I don't even know how to do?" I chuckled, and he shot me a look. "This isn't funny," he mumbled. "It kind of is," I teased, nudging him. "You're talking like this is an exam you forgot to study for." He gave me a half-hearted glare. "So can you help?" "Help how?" I asked, curious now. "I don't know." He sat up again, frustrated. "Just explain stuff. Like, what do girls actually want? What am I supposed to do? Is there a manual I missed or something?" I bit back another laugh. "Aiden, this isn't something you learn from a textbook." "But I don't want to mess it up," he said earnestly, and I realized just how much this mattered to him. I sighed and adjusted my seat to face him fully. "Okay, listen. First off, stop overanalyzing everything. It's not about doing things perfectly. It's about making sure both of you feel safe and respected. That's what matters." He nodded quickly, eyes locked on mine. "And talk to her," I added. "If you're unsure, ask. Don't assume. And if she's nervous too, take your time. You'll figure it out together." He nodded again, though he still looked uneasy. "And the actual he said, trailing off. I smirked. "Are you seriously asking me for a step-by-step breakdown?" His face went crimson. "Forget I said anything." I laughed softly. "It's okay. Just be present. Pay attention to how she reacts. If she's enjoying it, you'll know. If she hesitates, pause. It's not about pulling off some fancy move. It's about connection. That's what makes it good for both of you." He mulled that over for a second. "That actually helps." "Good," I said with a gentle nudge. He let out a breath, tension easing from his shoulders. "I still feel like I'm gonna mess it all up." "You won't," I said warmly. "And if it helps, you can be honest with her. Say it's your first time. Who knows? Maybe she'll say the same thing. Then neither of you has to pretend." He groaned but smiled. "You make it sound so easy." "Because it is," I replied. "You'll be fine." He gave a slow nod. "Thanks. You're actually kind of awesome." "Shoo," I grinned. "Don't ruin my image." He stood up, stretching. "Night, sis." "Night, Aiden." The next morning, something about him had shifted. Not dramatically, but he was quieter than usual at breakfast, pushing scrambled eggs around his plate instead of scarfing them down like he normally would. And then I caught it, his gaze flicking up at me across the table before darting away, his ears tinged pink. "You good?" I asked, arching an eyebrow. "Yeah, just thinking," he said, voice low. I didn't press, but something told me his thoughts were still tangled up in our late-night talk. Maybe my advice helped. Maybe it just gave him more to overthink. Throughout the day, I noticed it again, those quiet glances, not invasive or strange, just thoughtful. Like he was still sorting through emotions he hadn't fully named yet. By the time evening settled in, I had stopped thinking about it. I was in my room, fresh from a shower, sitting cross-legged and rubbing lavender-scented lotion into my arms while soft music played from my speaker. Then I heard that same soft knock on the door. I didn't have to look up. "Come in, Aiden." The door creaked open, and Aiden stepped in, looking nearly the same as the night before, uncertain, thoughtful, like he was wrestling with whatever had brought him here again. I smiled gently. "Back so soon?" "Yeah," he said, rubbing his neck in that same nervous way. I just... His gaze drifted toward the bottle of lotion still in my hand. "Were you busy?" I let out a soft laugh. "It's lotion, not a contract negotiation. I can multitask." He nodded once and stepped further in, shutting the door behind him. "All right, spill it," I said, tilting my head. "What's on your mind tonight?" He sat at the edge of my bed again, hands wrung tight in his lap. "It's just 2 days left." "Yup," I said, nodding. "The big night." "Yeah," he muttered, looking down. "And I'm still freaking out." I set the bottle aside. "Aiden, you're putting too much weight on this. It doesn't have to be this pressure cooker of a moment." I know," he sighed. "But I keep thinking about what you said last night." "Which part?" I asked. He hesitated, then looked up at me. "Your first time. That caught me off guard." "What about it?" "What was it like?" he asked, voice lower now, like he wasn't sure he should be asking. "Were you nervous? Did it go how you thought it would?" I studied his face. He wasn't being nosy. He was genuinely trying to prepare himself. I leaned back against the headboard. "It wasn't perfect," I said honestly. "But it didn't have to be. It was nice. A little awkward, sure, but once I stopped trying to control the moment, it felt real." He frowned. "How do you even stop overthinking?" I chuckled. "Having someone you trust makes a big difference. Someone who makes you feel safe." He nodded thoughtfully. "So, you didn't regret it?" "Not at all," I said. "Because I was ready. That's what matters. It's not about impressing someone or checking boxes. It's about wanting it and trusting the person you're with." He stared down at his hands again. I feel like I should have some plan or something." "You don't need a plan, Aiden," I said gently. "You just need to be there. Like, really there." He glanced at me again, still looking unsure. "What if she—" I reached out and ruffled his hair. "Enough what-ifs," I said, smiling. "You're going to be okay." He groaned, pushing my hand away, but the corners of his lips tugged into a small smile. For a while we just sat there, the soft sound of my playlist filling the quiet. Then he let out a laugh. "I still can't believe I'm talking to you about this." I grinned. "I still can't believe you chose me as your advice hotline." "Well," he said, rubbing his neck again, "you're the only one I trust with this." Something about that made my chest tighten. I bumped his shoulder. "Guess that makes me the best sister ever." He rolled his eyes. "Don't get cocky." I laughed, and finally, I saw the tension begin to fade from his frame. He wasn't completely relaxed, but he wasn't shouldering it alone anymore. The weekend snuck up faster than expected. By Saturday evening, Aiden stood in front of the hallway mirror, checking himself over for what had to be the 10th time. His shirt was crisp, a deep navy blue, paired with dark jeans. His hair was neat, styled just enough to look effortless. He looked different, more composed. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Look at you, all dressed up," I teased. He smirked at his reflection. "Figured I'd try to make a good impression." "I think Vanessa already has won," I replied, stepping closer. He let out a breath, staring hard at himself in the mirror. "Still feels like a big deal." "How are you feeling?" I asked. He turned to face me, his eyes clearer than I expected. "Still nervous, but better." Talking to you helped." I smiled and reached up to smooth a strand of hair near his temple. "Just don't overthink it. Be yourself. Trust the moment." He nodded, but I could tell he was still working up the nerve. Without thinking too much, I pulled him into a hug, quick but strong. He tensed at first, surprised, but then relaxed into it. "Good luck, Aiden," I murmured. He stepped back and looked at me, really looked at me. "Thanks," he said softly. Then he grabbed his jacket, took one last glance in the mirror, and walked toward the front door. I stayed there, listening as the door clicked shut behind him. And just like that, the house fell silent again. That night I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, mind racing. I'd done what any good sister would, offered support, advice, reassurance. So why did something inside me feel so unsettled? At first, it was just idle curiosity. Was he nervous right now? Did he remember what I told him? Was Haley just as unsure as he was, learning beside him, or was she the one leading him into it? The thought began as curiosity, small, vague, but it twisted quickly, turning into something deeper, something sharp and unsettling. I shifted under the covers, staring up into the dark. My stomach tightened. Jealousy. The realization hit hard, so sudden I almost sat up. I was jealous, not in the way a protective sibling might be, not in the way someone worries about someone they care about. It wasn't that I thought Haley was wrong for him. It wasn't that I wanted to keep him away from her. No, it was worse than that. I was jealous because she was seeing a part of him I had never been allowed to see. A part of him I had helped him reach. I was the one who steadied his voice. I was the one who eased his fears. I was the one he trusted. But she was the one who would receive him tonight. She would be there in the moment I helped him prepare for. And in some quiet corner of myself, the part one tried so hard to bury, I wanted to be the one in her place. I squeezed my eyes shut. No. This wasn't right. He was my brother, not by blood, but by life, by family, by years of living side by side. Lines existed, lines I had never questioned before tonight. But emotions don't listen to logic. They don't care about rules. And my mind kept imagining him, the way he would look at her, the way he might touch her, the way his voice had sounded when he asked me questions last night, low and hesitant, as if the words themselves were fragile. My chest tightened. My fingers curled into the sheets. I tried to stop the thoughts, but the harder I tried, the louder they became. I remember the way he looked at me just before he left, that split second where his eyes lingered like he wanted to say something more. Something he didn't. Had he felt something too? Or was I just inventing things to justify my own confusion? I shook my head sharply. No, I was imagining it. He was with Haley now, living a moment that had nothing to do with me. And yet, as I stared at the ceiling, my chest ached with something I didn't have a name for. I turned onto my side, hugging my pillow tightly. Sleep didn't come. Not even close. The silence of the house felt heavier than usual, thick and unkind. I had always liked quiet nights, reading, music, calm. But tonight the silence felt suffocating, like the walls themselves were listening. I rolled onto my back again, staring at the clock glowing beside my bed. Hours had passed since Aiden left. Of course he wasn't texting. Of course he was busy. This was his night, not mine. So why did it feel like a piece of me had walked out the door with him? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. Him laughing nervously, her leaning closer, his hand reaching for hers. The slow, uncertain closeness of new territory. My breath caught. This was ridiculous. I knew it was. I knew. He wasn't thinking about me. Not in this moment. He was living a new part of his life, and I should have been happy for him. Instead, I was pacing my room, restless energy fizzing under my skin like electricity. I considered going outside, taking a walk, but the clock read past midnight. I thought about calling a friend, but what would I even say? Hey, I can't sleep because my stepbrother is with his girlfriend and I'm losing my mind over it. Yeah. No. Not happening. I ran my hand through my hair, frustration blooming hot in my chest. I needed something to break the tension before it swallowed me whole. I picked up my phone, scrolled, closed every app just as quickly. Everyone online seemed happy, effortlessly happy, smiling, kissing, celebrating, existing without complication. I tossed the phone aside with a sharp sigh. Almost without thinking, I walked to the mirror. The girl staring back at me looked the same. Same face, same expressions, but something in her eyes felt unfamiliar. Something restless, something awake. I looked away quickly, like I was afraid of being caught. I sat back on the bed, knees drawn close, heart pounding too loud in the quiet. The storm didn't settle. It only grew stronger. Because deep down, I understood this wasn't only about Aiden. It was about me, about the role I had always played in his life. The one he came to first. The one he trusted when he was uncertain, when he needed clarity, when the world felt too loud or too confusing. I had always been the steady place he returned to, his sounding board, his home base, his anchor. And tonight, for the very first time, someone else had stepped into that space. Someone else was the one he sought out. Someone else was the one he confided in, leaned toward, opened himself to. And I didn't know what to do with that. I pressed my palms against my face, trying to breathe evenly, trying to stop the tightening in my chest. This shouldn't hurt. This shouldn't feel like loss. This should feel normal, healthy. He was allowed to grow. He was allowed to choose someone else, to trust someone else, to let his world expand beyond just us. But knowing that logically did nothing to soften what I felt. It wasn't anger, not even sadness, exactly. It was a displacement, like something inside me had quietly shifted out of place, leaving a hollow space where something warm used to be. I told myself it would pass, that I just needed a few hours, that by morning this would dissolve into embarrassment, and I would laugh at myself for overreacting. I told myself to sleep, to calm down, to let the night move forward without me. But the minutes dragged themselves into hours, slow and heavy, and the storm inside me didn't fade. In fact, it grew stronger, because one stubborn, aching thought kept circling through me, slow and quiet and inescapable. I wasn't entirely sure I wanted the feeling to go away.